Ladies and gentlemen, with the recent crisis of boat migrants' arrival in Malaysian waters, we heard different responses from Malaysian government and public. Other than knowing that Angelina Jolie is a special envoy of United Nations Refugee Agency and she and Brad Pitt have adopted refugee children, we start questioning, who are the refugees? Therefore today, my colleague and I will present our analysis of Malaysia's practices towards refugees. Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera everyone. As we all know, Malaysia has not ratified the International Refugee Convention and it has no clear and specific policy regarding the refugees. At the same time, Malaysia hosts a significant number of refugee population. There's also no provision made for refugees under Immigration Act 1959/1963. Hence, all refugees are considered as illegal immigrants. We take a stance that with the absence of clear refugee policy, the refugees' well-being are uncertain. On the other hand, Malaysian authorities have no form of control over the refugee movement into and within the country. This policy analysis aims to discuss challenges faced by the Malaysian government and also the challenges faced by refugees with the absence of refugee policy. It also explains the reasons for Malaysia's actions and inactions in responding accordingly to the refugee issues. We will then explore some policy alternatives and policy recommendations for improvement. So ladies and gentlemen, who are the refugees? Well, according to the United Nations Convention relating to the status of refugees, people who flee from their home countries because of fear of persecution are called asylum seekers. Asylum seekers will be granted refugee status once proven to have well-founded of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, and membership of a particular social group or political opinion. Historically, Malaysia actually has accepted refugees since 1970s. The Mindanao refugees fled to Sabah. The Vietnamese boat people in 1970s. I also remember when I was still a kid, well, not long time ago, Malaysia accepted Bosnian refugees from Europe. The refugees from Aceh also came in 3 waves, as well as the recent one, the Rohingyas, who actually come to our shores recently. Let's have a look at the data from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees as of end February 2005. So currently, Malaysia hosts over 152,000 refugees, and refugees from Myanmar constitute over 92% or 141,000 at the moment. There are also refugees from the Middle East like Syria and Palestine, from South Asia, as well as Somalia, Africa. Among these refugees, 69% are male, 31% are female. And there are over 32,000 of these refugees who are under the age of 18 years old. Refugee issues in Malaysia are Myanmar-centric, since many of them actually come from Myanmar. Chins make up the largest group, followed by Rohingyas and other ethnic groups. The map on the screen actually shows where the refugee ethnic groups are from in Myanmar. It is very important to note that the Rohingyas from Arakan actually are stateless under 1982 Burma citizenship law. What is the process of becoming a refugee? Well, the flowchart actually summarizes everything. Once asylum seekers reach Malaysia, they register with their community groups and they will get community cards. Then, they will undergo refugee status determination by UNHCR and they will get asylum seeker cards. If the result of RSD is positive, asylum seekers will legally become refugees and get refugee cards. UNHCR will then find resettlement countries for the refugees. If the RSD result is negative, the asylum seekers have 2 weeks to appeal. Community Development Unit, CDU of UNHCR, works together with NGOs to register asylum seekers. For data collection, we managed to engage and interview 14 people. We interviewed 9 refugee community leaders under Coalition of Burmese Ethnics Malaysia, or BEM, the Malaysian Bar, Asylum Access, human rights activists. We We also attended a talk by UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees, representative in Malaysia, Mr. Richard Tao. We also attended a seminar by anthropologist Dr. Gerhard Hofstetter, as well as a photo exhibition by Mr. Gregory Constantine. Other than that, we do our observations by personal interactions with the refugee community. We also refer to journals, articles, news, and reports. Our case study area is Klang Valley because most of the refugees actually live in urban areas. We focus on Burmese refugees since majority of them are actually from Burma. The stakeholders involved are Immigration Department, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Royal Malaysia Police PDRM, and Pasukan Sukarelawan Rakyat Rela. Ladies and gentlemen, in analysis part, I will explain the challenges faced by Malaysian government in recognizing refugee status. Number one, state sovereignty. The recent action of turning away the boat migrants was intended to send the right message to the intruders. For whatever reasons, Malaysia cannot compromise on its territorial sovereignty, as asserted by the Deputy Home Minister Wan Junaidi. Malaysia cannot open its borders to refugees who enter illegally. Otherwise, its sovereignty will be undermined. Secondly, national security issues. Refugees in Malaysia have no proper documentation and paid people smugglers to enter Malaysia. So, their entry and identity cannot be traced. In the 2014 Annual Trafficking in Persons report, Malaysia was relegated to Tier 3. Responding to this issue, Prime Minister Najib Razak stated that Malaysia will not tolerate any form of human trafficking. Thirdly, the burden of providing services. Deputy Minister of Home Affairs said that the illegal immigrants and refugees pose burden to Malaysia. Foreign Minister Anifah Aman also stated, if Malaysia ratified the International Refugee Convention, Malaysia needs to treat refugees better than its own people. Malaysia needs to provide basic services like employment, education, healthcare, and others. However, the government thinks that only Malaysian citizens are entitled to these basic services, and not the refugees who are non-citizens. Number 4, cultural and social barriers. Prime Minister's Department Minister Shahidan Kasim stated that the refugees' rough behavior brought many problems because of their different cultures. They're also threatening the local businesses at night markets. Health problems are also another issue, as told by Wan Junaidi. It is believed that the refugees have diseases that can be contagious and spread in Malaysia. And last but not least, lack of cooperation. Recently, Myanmar refuted the claim by Datuk Sri Wan Junaidi that the persecution happening in Myanmar is the root cause of the refugee influx. On the contrary, Myanmar's presidential office stated that the weakness in preventing human trafficking is the root cause. In this case, if Malaysia and Myanmar are not on the same page, comprehensive cooperation between countries is impossible.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the second part of the analysis, we have identified 8 challenges faced by the refugees in Malaysia. Firstly, crossing borders. According to refugee leaders, the refugees, including women and children, cross Malaysia-Thailand border through Sungai Golok, Rantau Panjang. They need to pay from 2,000 to 5,000 ringgit to agents or people smuggler before they were brought into Malaysia. Mr. Tao verified that people smuggling activity happened from southern Thailand. He also said that newly arrived Chin are no longer entitled to refugee protection because of the stable situation in Chin state, and this was refuted by refugees. Secondly, lack of legal status. The absence of refugee policy causes the refugee in Malaysia not to have legal status. They are also mistakenly believed to be illegal economic migrants under the law and public. Without legal status, the refugee cannot get assistance from the government. Mr. Tao also mentioned that illegality causes a lesser form of treatment, and that is why UNHCR card has no legal value here in Malaysia. Thirdly, arrest and detention. Lack of legal status means that the refugees are vulnerable to arrest and detention. According to Asylum Access, mothers were arrested immediately after giving birth at public hospital. Kachin refugee leader also claimed that they are treated harshly in detention center. they need to pay up to 1,500 ringgit before they can see a UNHCR representative. In a month, there are 15 to 100 more refugees get arrested. In fact, 2 Burmese refugees died at detention center last March. Number 4, corruption and bribery. According to the refugee leaders, the refugees have to pay 500 to 1,500 ringgit to the police to avoid arrest. They are also claimed that the UNHCR card will be torn up by the police. If any of the members is arrested, the refugee community need to pay 1,500 ringgit at Kepong police station. This corruption and bribery allegation has been verified by the Malaysian Bar and refugees activists. Fifthly, employment. Under the law, the refugees are not allowed to work. Hence, they are prone to exploitation by working illegally in informal sector. Mr. Tao said that the refugees are exploited to maximize profit. Most of the refugees either underpaid or not paid at all. Mr. Warner said that his 4 months of work was only paid with 1 month's salary, and this usually happened to other refugees too. Number 6 is education. According to refugee leaders, not all children can access to primary and secondary education due to lack of resources such as qualified teacher, comprehensive syllabi, and adequate school facilities. Without education, Korban president is worried that the refugee children will not have better future and get involved in drug addiction. The Malaysian Bar stressed that Malaysia is obliged to provide education to all children under Article 28 of Convention on the Right of Children, since we are signatory to it. Number 7 is healthcare. Currently, with UNHCR card, refugee can get 50% discount of foreign rates at public hospital. However, as the fee has increased by 30% and there is no longer UNHCR financial assistance, the refugee can no longer afford the cost as they live in poverty, as told by the Chin community leaders. He said that the treatment for transmissible disease is no longer free of charge starting from January 2015. Last but by no means least is statelessness. Mr. Constantine said that statelessness refers to people who do not have a nationality and lack of identification. In his photo exhibition, he documented that stainless Rohingya, one of the most persecuted ethnic in the world. In the Rohingya cases, Dr. Hofstadter revealed that the second and third generation of Rohingya who were born here in Malaysia are becoming stateless.
The evaluation part begins with the discussion of reasons for Malaysia's actions and inactions in responding accordingly towards refugee issues. Number 1, pull factor to the influx of refugees. Recognizing refugee status will attract more refugees into Malaysia, as told by Foreign Affairs Ministry. The government also views that the presence of UNHCR is also a pull factor, as told by Mr. Tao. However, the Malaysian Bar and refugee activists disagree. Whether or not Malaysia recognizes refugee status, refugees will keep coming, as they are forced to. Number 2, humanitarian exception. Foreign Affairs Ministry stated that Malaysia cooperates with UNHCR based on humanitarian grounds. Humanitarian grounds give exception to the enforcement of the strict immigration rules. However, only UNHCR and NGOs play an active role in protecting the refugees, not the Malaysian government. Number 3, Muslim sentiment. Malaysia has allowed Muslim refugees from Mindanao, Cambodia, Bosnia, Indonesia, and Myanmar to be here. This is because Malaysia's foreign policy gives strong importance to the Muslim Ummah. However, the refugee activists claimed that the Muslim refugees are treated badly. The Palestinian refugees in Malaysia, for example, are also abused despite the strong support of Palestinian cause in Malaysia. Number 4, international cooperation. During the influx of Indo-Chinese refugees from Vietnam in 1970s, there was a comprehensive plan of action between 3 parties. First, asylum countries such as Malaysia. Secondly, Vietnam. And thirdly, third countries including Australia and United States. Clearly, multilateral consensus and international cooperation contributed to this successful responsibility sharing. Now I will explain the alternatives available in short, medium, and long term. As for short term, the government can provide proper documentation and identification for refugees. Even with UNHCR refugee cards, refugees still can be arrested. Hence, Malaysian government should register the refugees to issue government-recognized refugee cards or IDs to avoid arrest. This will make it easier for immigration personnel to coordinate with the UNHCR to give refugees assistance. Secondly, the refugees should be incorporated into the labour force. Refugees have been working illegally in informal sector. Ministry of Home Affairs stated a few times that Malaysia would give the refugee employment right, but nothing has been heard until today. The available of human resource will be wasted if refugees are not allowed to work as agreed by the Executive Director of Malaysian Employers Federation. In Kampala, Uganda, for instance, 21% refugees employ others, and 40% of those employees are local Ugandans. Clearly, if refugees have employment right, they can contribute greatly and productively to the economy. As for medium term, the role of RELA must be reviewed and immigration enforcement needs to be improved. RELA volunteers have no proper training as admitted by General Director of RELA. Despite that, RELA has the power to arrest the refugees without a warrant, and they get monetary incentives for it. With no proper training and inappropriate role, RELA will violate due process of law. Hence, their role should be reviewed. In terms of immigration enforcement, the corruption and bribery allegations faced by RELA and PDRM also need to be taken seriously. Number 4, develop legislative and administrative framework. There should be framework that recognizes refugee legal status to administer assistance. The Immigration Act should have a provision that defines who are the refugees to distinguish them with illegal immigrants. The punishment of whipping or for irregular entry to the refugees should also be abolished. As for long term, we need to have a regional cooperation. Since over 92% of refugees are from Myanmar, Malaysia has every right to push for political reforms in Myanmar, which is the root cause of this crisis. Responding to UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon's concern, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak stated that something needs to be done regarding the Rohingya persecution. Malaysia can use its role as the capacity of Chair of ASEAN and a member of UN Security Council to work regionally with Myanmar, Thailand and Indonesia to find solutions. Last but not least, Malaysia should ratify the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol. This is an ideal as the convention has 3 important elements. Number 1, it defines who are the refugees. Number 2, it specifies the refugees' rights. And last but not least, it outlines the obligations of the state to protect the refugees. By ratifying the Refugee Convention, all parties at all levels will have a proper guideline to provide necessary protection to the refugees. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we recommend the government to consider 2 important policy alternatives. Number 1, provide proper IDs for refugees through registration. The refugees should have proper refugee IDs to be recognized. They will also not be mistakenly believed to be illegal economic migrants and get arrested if they have proper government-recognized refugee IDs. Secondly, we recommend the government to give employment right to the refugees, as promised by the government a few times before. With a stable economy and low unemployment rate of just 3%, Malaysia is able to absorb refugees into the labour force. With unemployment, they actually can contribute productively to the economy and be self-sufficient for their survival. Ladies and gentlemen, actually, this is also another recommendation given by Mr. Tao. So, since the refugees are here, they need to get work to be self-sufficient and survive. And in fact, currently, they are working in formal sector. It's just that they are not legal. As a conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the absence of refugee policy has made the refugees' well-being uncertain. On the other hand, Malaysian authorities have no form of control over the refugee movement into and within the country. Hence, as a UN Security Council member, Malaysia should protect the refugees by crafting a clear and specific refugee policy. We actually have identified the issue We explained to you the background of the study. We actually explained the challenges faced by the government in recognizing the refugee rights, the challenges faced by the refugees with the absence of refugee policy, reasons for Malaysia's actions and inactions, and we gave policy recommendations and alternatives. Ladies and gentlemen, seeking asylum is a human right. Refugees are humans. We are humans. For the sake of humanity, let's work together to protect the refugees. With that, I thank you.
This is a very difficult issue. When you say that the government doesn't have this, that policy,